Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Today is Wednesday, September 27th. Welcome to the Beverly School Committee's Standing Committee on Finance and Facilities. We are meeting today in a remote model using a remote meeting application allowed for remote participation and for public access to the open portions of our meeting. We're being recorded. Are we recording on the platform? No. Okay, we are being, the platform's recording and we're being broadcast by BevCam. Thank you, BevCam.
Recording in progress.
Oh, there we go. I got it. On June, I'll get that off my screen in a minute. On June 16th, 2021, the former governor signed Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and on February 12th, and again on July 16th of 2022, he extended provisions to, among other things, allow public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until March 31st of 2023. Now, our current governor and legislature extended further 2 years until March 31st of 2025. These same acts. These acts specifically suspend the need for a quorum and the chair to be physically present and asks our body to use technical methods to allow safe public access. As a note, Beverly has prior approval for remote participation, although through that permission, the chair and a quorum have to be physically present when this act and its extension expires. Tonight's finance and facilities, we do not have a place on our agenda for public to join to address the body. We are joined here this evening by members of the school committee, various members of the district and the city, and the leadership team, as well as volunteers from our community. I'll conduct a full roll call in just a minute. For the record, because the meeting application sometimes does not display all participants. Please remember that any audio or video you supply on this platform will become part of this meeting record. And as such, please mute your microphone or use your mute functionality if you're online to prevent background noises. All right, so here's our roll call. In the room as a voting member, Dr. Kenan McKenzie DeFranza.
Here.
Thank you. Miss Kimberly Coelho.
Here.
Thank you. Miss DeGeneva.
Here.
Am I doing better with that?
Yes.
Well, maybe another year I'll get it even better. Online and a voting member, Mr. Manzo.
Here.
Thank you. Hope you're feeling pretty okay. Also in the room, we have, as our city council representative this evening, Mr. Todd Rotundo.
Here.
Thank you. From our administrative team, Jean Sherburne, Director of Finance and Operations.
Here.
Dr. Sue Chirocek, our superintendent. Here. Ms. Erin Brown, the Director of Information and Human Resources. And our Director of B&G, Mr. Bob Shirley.
Here.
Okay. I don't see anybody else online. I have also in the room doing IT for me, Miss A. Bell. And I don't see anyone else online. Okay, so here's our agenda. We have a lot to get through in the next 55 minutes. First item on the agenda is approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Here it's up on the screen for all of you playing along at home. Everybody who's on the committee, these items were in your packet. Everybody in the room, if you want me to make the font bigger, if you need bigger font, let me know. I can try to do that. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the set. Do you want to ask Kimmy to do that? Oh, yeah, okay. Ms. Coelho, will you do me a favor this meeting? So I don't have to try to do this and something else? Basically, when somebody makes a motion, you're gonna just check, yeah, here, all these people were here, or were they remote? Who made the motion? Like right now, we're gonna go do a motion, and you'll just, yeah, I'll give you mine. Okay, here we go. All right, ouch, sorry.
The reasoning for that is we don't have is in our, going to be taking the minutes from
Right. Usually we have a stenographer in the room, and due to unfortunate personal circumstances, we have no such stenographer this evening. Oh, I thought, okay. Oh, a fortunate. Okay, excellent. Because maybe my last meeting was unfortunate. Sorry. The days are flying past here. All right, so I'm looking in the room. Mr. Kim, is there a problem?
Well, some people were talking without the mic, but that's good.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to approve the set of meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was way back in June. Probably the last time we had a sunny day. If somebody at my table, I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. We're all a little rusty. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second it, although I have to abstain from passing them because I wasn't there.
Okay, well, I appreciate that to help push us along. All right, and because Mr. Manzo is ill and at home, and we really appreciate the fact that he is attending and helping us and not sharing his germs with us, that's the part I appreciate the most. We have to do a roll call vote. So we're going to try to go in the same order all evening, and Mr. Manzo, we're going to start with you, and then we're going to go down the table this way. Mr. Manzo.
I feel fine, and yes.
Thank you. Ms. DeGeneva.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Abstain.
Okay. Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
And I vote yes. All right, so the meeting minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda is gifts to schools. So I'm putting that on the screen. The font is size puny, so let me blow it up a little bit so people at home can at least see. We always love when we have gifts to schools. So look at that, a lot of money from BevEd. The total amount in the gifts of schools in this particular allotment is $58,926.91. Would one of my committee members please make I would entertain a motion to accept this incredible gift.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Looking for a second? You can do that.
I second.
Thank you, Ms. DeGeneva.
This is gifts to school.
This is gifts to school. You good over there? All right.
She did, you jumped over the FY23 transfers, but that's okay, we can go
I
back.
did? Oh, I'm seriously rusty. Oh, I did. I went, I'm sorry. Okay.
Second was.
Does anybody have any questions or comments, any discussion on this incredible amount of money that's coming into our school system from very generous donors? All right, seeing none, we'll do our roll call vote. Mr. Manzo.
Yes.
Mr. Geneva.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
And myself, absolutely, with incredible gratitude. Okay, so I skipped over. Let's go backwards to our budget transfers. We have a heck of a batch of them. I believe I put them in my tabs in order, Miss Sherburne. So,
You can give me a number, and I can jump to that on my pages.
I believe I'm showing JE 23 951.
951, okay.
All right, so that is on my screen for people playing along at home. In order to, if anybody has any questions, in order to start the discussion, I need a motion. All right, so I'm looking for a motion for us to accept budget transfer JE 951.
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Second, Mr. Geneva, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on this particular transfer? Seeing none, here comes the roll. Mr. Manzo,
Yes.
Mr. Geneva,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Your microphone is toggled the opposite way, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Thank you. Ms. Coelho?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Fantastic. One down, about 10 to go. All right, Ms. Sherburne, I believe, usually the number is up on the top, is it not?
I
Yes.
kind of tried to circle them.
There we go. We're on now budget transfer 1,067. I'm looking for a motion to approve this particular budget transfer.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
I just want to point out that that is an FY24 budget transfer.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Beginning of the
Geneva, for
year.
the second.
1067.
1067. It might be at the end of the list because it is a 2024 budget transfer versus a fiscal year 2023 budget transfer.
So I'll just, did we get a motion in a second?
Yes, we did, from Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza and Mr. Geneva.
The only thing I'll mention is this is the transfer they do at the beginning of the year. This would be moving steps, increases. It does not include column moves.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on this one? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Manzo,
Yes.
Mr. Geneva,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
myself, yes. Ms. Coelho, I'm sorry, I threw a curveball by, I thought I put them in order, but I didn't realize that the numerical order, then that one was a date not in order. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is 1080. Budget transfer JE 1080. I now see your numbering mechanism, Ms. Sherburne. My apologies. I'm looking for a motion to accept this particular budget transfer.
So moved.
Second.
Was that Ms. Coelho? Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Second, thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Are there any questions on this particular budget transfer? All right, again, the rest of these are for last year, the end of the last school year, so 2023. All right, seeing none, Mr. Manzo.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Geneva,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
myself, yes. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 more to go, people. Here we go, we're doing it. Okay, our next one is item number 1185.
That's FY24.
That's also an FY24? All right, we'll leave it. Wait a minute.
No, you can do it.
Okay, we'll stay, all right, so FY24, 1185. I'm looking for a motion.
Hold on, let me find it. Oh, I got it. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. A second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. I'm still struggling with that double name. I apologize. Mr. Geneva knows I've been struggling with her name for about 2 years now, so it might take a couple of meetings. Anybody have any questions about this particular budget transfer? You don't have it?
And I'll only add that this is the transfer for FY24. This was sent later with the, and this one is for column moves.
Column moves. It's on the screen. Can you see the screen? You want me to make it bigger? All right. Do you mind if I call the roll? Are you in good shape? All right, Mr. Manzo.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Geneva.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Myself, yes. All right, 3 more. Dun, 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 dun. And then Mr. B&G, I see you waiting so patiently over there. I appreciate that. We're now looking at budget transfer JE 1804. If I were with my children, I would say, oh, the year I was born. And then they all groan. Okay, so little mom, bad humor. I'm looking for a motion to accept 1804.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Anybody have any questions on this one? Seeing none, the roll. Mr. Manzo.
Yes.
Mr. Geneva.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Myself, yes. There we go. 2 left. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Our next one is number 1828. I am looking for a motion. It's on your screen. I'm making the font bigger. I'm looking for a motion to approve this particular budget transfer.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Any questions? Seeing none, the roll. Mr. Manzo,
Yes.
Mr. Geneva,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
myself, yes. Thank you. Here comes our last budget transfer. Then we're gonna make Jean do all the talking for a while. Our last budget, I believe our last budget transfer. I don't know. I'm looking over there. You look nervous, Miss Sherburne.
Yeah, I think we did them all.
Oh, okay. 1870. We already did it.
Nope,
Okay. Oh, you're tricking me. Okay, so
I did it, but
I have on the screen budget transfer JE 1870. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Any questions on this one? Ms. Sherburne, do you have any questions on this one?
no. I just want to know that I had already predicted who was going to make the motion and second it when I filed it.
Oh, okay. You were like
was
psychic.
right.
Okay, you're psychic over there. All right, call in the roll. Mr. Manzo.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Geneva.
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, people. All right, so we are now through our meeting minutes, our budget transfers, our gifts to schools. I'm now going to bring up a file that is about our staff, our support staff substitute rates. Hold on a minute because it was in Microsoft Word. I have to stop sharing for a minute and find something else to share with all y'all. Ooh, how about this one? Okay, share.
I'll start talking about what the, this item is. So in the spring, I did bring forth the cafeteria subs, crossing guards, and custodian subs and clerical subs. And I had given what I thought the retired clerical subs would be, but when we finished negotiating with the AFSCME group, it would have been a reduction from what they're currently receiving. So I actually looked at all of them. So what I'm bringing forward are just the ones that are highlighted. And the retired custodian subs that would be retired from Beverly Public Schools would be placed on the AFSCME building custodian BHS middle school and high school, so regular custodians, step rate 1. So therefore, if we have a custodian that is a custodial sub that is not a retired sub, they would get $16.50, as you can see on this thing. The retired ones would get $20.94. So that would encourage having some of our retired employees that know the job come in and help substitute. The long-term clerical subs, that is on AFSCME grade 1, step 1 rate, and that would be currently is $18.10. So that will change each year based on what the contract has, even though these people are not associated with the unions, but we're going to go for that rate. And then the retired clerks would be at the AFSCME grade 2, step 1 rate, which would be positions that they most likely were in before at step 1. At $24.50. So I'm looking to have the committee approve these new non-union hourly rates.
And I'm confident that we'll have some questions because there's at least one inside of my curly head. And so in order to have those questions and have the discussion, we need a motion to approve this hourly rate change.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza and Ms. Coelho. I'm looking, Mr. Manzo, if you want to speak, can you raise your hand in the emoji area of Zoom, okay? And I'll try to keep my eye on that. Okay, I'm looking around the room. Does anybody have any questions? All right, I'll call on myself then. I'm channeling Mr. Manzo, and Ms. Sherburne, I'd like to ask, where in the budget do we have money to do this increase?
That would be coming from our substitute, we have a clerical substitute line Buildings and Grounds has a custodial one. So it would be coming from those two areas. And we do have an adequate budget to handle this. We don't have many people in these types of positions, but the ones that we do have, we want to, keep them. And it's much better to have somebody with experience substituting.
Okay, and second question it's not really related at all to my first question, is the rates that you quoted are not on this piece of paper?
Right, so what I did was I put in here that it's the step one rate, so for the sake of this document in FY '25, it will go up to whatever the negotiated rate was for that position.
So the school committee members all have those rate charts, so they could get that data by doing a cross-reference?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right, I'm looking for one last chance. Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Sherburne on this motion? Okay, oh yes, Mr. Geneva.
Question, okay, we have the money this year. What's going to happen? How are you going to fund it for the following years?
We'd make sure that we have adequate funding for substitutes. So when we build our budget for the next year, we look at what, historically we've had and make sure that we have it funded
So you're
for
gonna,
that.
build it
So,
up.
if there was a 2%, 2.75% increase, we know we need to increase our substitute pool by that. Or if we have a budget that had a little surplus, then we obviously wouldn't have to increase the budget for that. But that's something that Dr. Shirochak and I would be looking at each year.
Thank you.
All right, last call for questions on this substitute hourly rate increase. Seeing none, the roll. Mr. Manzo,
Yes.
Mr. Geneva,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Okay, hold on, we're going back to our agenda. Agenda says, what's next? Grants. Oh boy, I have to find that file on my screen. Hold, please. Jean, was that also a Microsoft Word file? Yes, grants to be approved. Here comes the share. Vanna's going to get fired. Grants to be approved. Okay, I believe that is now on the screen for everybody playing along at home. I'll scroll a little bit. Mr.
So-
Manzo, it's lovely to see your face. Okay, so I'm looking for.
Figured out where that button was.
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to approve acceptance of these grants for this school year. Ms. Sherburne, do you want to speak to them before we have a
I
motion?
think, Ms. Coelho, can you just confirm that, did I have Donna put them in as entitlements, competitive, or a whole total?
I have entitlement grants totaling $2,555,254.
Okay, that means I need a
So
separate
we want a
motion. Yes,
second
ma'am.
motion. Yep.
Okay, so,
The first set is entitlement grants, where the Department of Education gives us grants based on our needs, and these are amounts like Title I, Title IIA, Title IV that we receive every year. So we're looking for a motion to approve $2,555,254 in entitlement grants.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
thank you, Ms. Coelho. Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. I'm looking, does anybody have any questions on, excuse me, these entitlement grants? I'll throw an easy one out there for you, Ms. Sherburne. We get all of these every year, right? They all look familiar to me.
Yes.
We have no new wild
Nope,
entitlement grants.
These are the same ones, and they're similar amounts.
I was just gonna say, are we inching up a little bit?
Some may have gone down a little bit.
Okay, too
but
bad.
they're,
Okay. All right, no more questions on the floor. Mr. Manzo, the roll call.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Geneva.
Yes.
Dr. Canan Mackenzie DeFranco, you got 3 names that time.
Yes.
It's because it's your birthday. Ms. Coelho
Yes.
and myself, yes. We love getting grant money in. All right, the next motion I'm looking for is to accept the competitive grants for a total amount of $165,385.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho and Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Sherburne, do you want to speak to these two or not?
I would defer to Dr. Shirocek on the first one. Actually, on both of them, they're grants that are for specific.
Yep. So actually, both of these grants, it's the first year that we've been awarded both of these grants. The first grant is the Career and Technical Assistance Partnership Grant. That's a grant that we wrote specifically designed to enable us to expand our After Dark program to Salem High School. The grant, if you remember, when we went into partnership with Essex Tech, which we remain in partnership with, we explained that the way that the funding comes back for Chapter 74 programs is a year it comes a year later, and you really need to bridge the cost of the program from the first year to the second year. We do get in the second year the money back in through the Chapter 70 formula as a incremental increase for After Dark students, but we won't get that till next year. So this grant will cover that cost of the students that are there, that differential for year one, and it will also cover the transportation for our students to go back and forth to Salem. So, and the second grant is an Innovation Career Pathways grant. That's actually a planning grant. It's the first year of a subsequent larger grant opportunity. It is leading toward designation as an Innovative Pathways district, and the money will be used in terms of planning purposes for expanding our pathways for our students that attend Beverly High School.
Those both sound fantastic. All right, I'm looking for a motion to accept those two grants.
And the total of $165,385.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Does anybody have any questions on these two? Yes, Mr. Geneva.
How many students do we have to this career and technical partnership?
So I'll actually have more information for that at the school committee meeting. Off the top of my head, I think we have 8 and 20, probably 29 students. Some 21 of them are at Essex Tech, and 8 of them are at Salem High School for the After Dark program.
Okay, I'm going to save my questions for the bigger meeting where you're going to present that, Dr. Chirocek. All right, so there's any more questions on this particular grant? All right, I'm calling the roll. Mr. Manzo.
Yes.
Mr. Geneva.
Yes.
Dr. Canan Mackenzie DeFranza.
Yes.
Ms. Coelho.
Yes.
Myself, yes. All right, that guy passes. And we have one more grant on this page, a DPH grant for a total of $40,000. I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie
Second.
DeFranza. Thank you, Ms. Coelho, for the second, before I could even finish saying Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza's name. Ms. Sherburne, do you want to speak to this one?
This is a grant that we receive each year from the Department of Public Health for the Comprehensive School Health Services Grant. And this grant will be covering for a float nurse that would be serving as a substitute. So it would cover a portion of that person's salary.
Most fantastic. All right, anybody have any questions on this one? Here comes oh yes, Mr. Manzo, do you have a question, or are you just getting ready to vote?
No questions, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. I'm just trying to watch and see if your hand goes up on the Zoom. All right, but we're going to call roll. So, Mr. Manzo,
Yes.
Mr. Geneva,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Okay, so our grants are all set. I'm looking back at the agenda. Hold, please. What comes next?
Mr. Shiroli.
Mr. Shiroli, fantastic, thank you. Well, I did the budget transfers out of order. I messed them up all right, so the next thing on our agenda, I should go back to sharing. I'm sorry, share, and so you all can see the agenda. The next thing on our agenda is our building and grounds update, And we have Mr. Shiroli here with us in person. Always a pleasure when he joins us. And I'm just going to pass it over to you, and then I'll open it to the floor. Everybody got your report in their packet, and they may or may not have questions.
Perfect.
What, do you want to go that direction, or do you want
That's fine. I could talk, and if people have questions at the end or in between, it's fine as well. So first, thank you for having me. We had a busy summer, like usual, doing our regular deep cleaning, our annual inspections. We had a higher level of larger projects this year, and on top of the water issues here at the middle school, which were unforeseen, and unfortunately we had to deal with that. So I guess I could start there, give you guys a quick update. As most of you are aware, we walked through the space. We had a plumbing issue at the end of July, flooded the whole third neighborhood. So we did a quick remediation, pretty much gutted the entire space, had to get rid of a lot of the millwork. So in that time, from the end of July to the start of school, we were able to get these spaces ready for school, which was a huge effort on many people's parts. So a big shout out to all the support that Sue and Jean, Lisa Oliver gave us, but also the DPW. They helped us tremendously with cleaning up. We outsourced to a third-party remediation company to help out as well, and on top of the facilities crew who did a great job on getting the spaces ready. So all the classrooms right now have drywall up. They're painted. Students and staff were welcomed back. Probably not to the spaces that they wanted to, but nonetheless, spaces that they could teach and learn in. Where we are right now, we are waiting on a few steps to put the final procurement piece together and this is our third party doing this, for all of the millwork and the cabinetry. So anything that was damaged was removed. We will need to replace that, and insurance is covering all of this. So I guess I could open it up to any questions if anybody has any on the middle school.
I am looking around the room. I have a question. Mr. Manzo, do you have one? No? Okay, I just see you turn your camera on again. You're tricking me over there. Until the millwork comes in, are there temporary, quote-unquote, structures, like the shelving, right? Some of the millwork was the shelving that was in the rooms, right? So I haven't been back up there since we did our tour right after, which was, you're horrible. It was...
It's all good. Yeah, so we did order racking for all the classrooms for staff to put their belongings on. We made a few purchases, and then as some staff needed more, we purchased more to make sure they had the adequate amount that they needed to store their items.
And so that racking, is it like up against the wall in, like secured to the wall, or is it like in the middle of the room? Is it like, I don't know.
Yeah, so most of it, I believe, is up against the wall. It's wire racking on wheels, so they can move it around as they need to, and there's some flexibility with it. So yeah, it's just wire racking with shelving, kind of like you would see at a BJ's or Costco on wheels.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
Hi, thank you for the update. I'm wondering, with the plumbing issue, was this like something that was root cause, or is it all of the rain we've been having?
So it had nothing to do with rain. It was it was an internal plumbing issue. There was actually a forensic engineer that came in and took the plumbing components that we had issues with. I haven't gotten the report yet on that to see what they found, but they did take the root cause, and they're trying to figure that out.
So I apologize because as the chair of FNF, I did get a tour right after the problem happened, and this is our first meeting of the year, right?
Yeah.
So I probably should have been prepared to speak to that, what I saw, and thanks to Dr. Troshek, brought in myself and our chair of the whole committee, Ms. Abel, and it was not vandalism. right? We
Correct.
can definitively say that. There is a theory of a combination of like a Rube Goldberg machine almost, right? Of unfortunate events that caused it to happen. But I think it would be best if we waited until the report came out. But I should have been prepared to say right off the bat, it's determined it was not vandalism.
The one thing I wanted to add to that is that the insurance company is taking on the purchasing of everything, so everything is going to be covered by the insurance except for our deductible. And by doing that, they do not have to follow the Chapter 30B guidelines that we have to do. So they can actually get the people in here faster and do that. So that's actually a good thing. When they asked us, do you want us to do that? The first answer was unanimously, we said yes.
Right, and I don't want to go down this rat hole very far, and I don't, I know you want to get home to your family, Mr. Shirley, but I'll take another half a minute and say that any given room had a lot more damage than any other room, and care was taken to try to reclaim all the items in any given room, and then the teachers were given a chance to see from their room, did they want to try to salvage, or was it all like gone, right? And then make their lists and submit their lists to have their items replaced. There was a day that all the rugs, any given room has a rug that's a map of part of the world or maybe the United States or whatever. All the rugs had been shampooed and were out drying. And so there was a concerted effort to recover as much as could be recovered and to allow the teachers a say in what they wanted to keep, maybe even if somebody else might have said that's really, should be replaced. Yes, Dr.
I guess I would
Drew.
just add, because I think, Bob, you made it seem a lot more simple, the work that was done by the Buildings and Grounds Department and the immediacy of the response that took place. Bob and John Coffey, they were amazing. But I also, a huge shout out to, there were 18 teachers that were impacted in the flood. So 18 teachers had either a part or, in some cases, almost all of the materials that were left in their room damaged and destroyed. And so, the work that between the teachers, the assistant principals who were working through the summer, Lisa and, her administrative team, it was a lot of work. And I think the fact that we were able to welcome students in on the first day as much as we did, and there's been a lot of call for flexibility from those teachers. They've had to endure a lot of moving and packing and unpacking and moving and packing again, and they're coming into paint this weekend, or they're not coming into paint this weekend. So, we're extremely grateful to them for their flexibility that they showed throughout the process. And the good news is that we didn't have to house our students in the basement of a church somewhere to open school. The rooms and it I'm in awe that we were able to pull it off for the opening day, and that the drywall was replaced. We made sure that we did a replacement of all of it, so nothing that got wet remains in any of the rooms. And I think that was a key for us in restoring the rooms to their original quality, including the millwork, including the painting. We took care to make sure that we didn't want to cut any corners along the way. And so I just want to thank Bob and his team and everybody, and especially the teachers that, it was a lot, but they struggled through, and we're in and we're having classes and things are going well, so.
All right, so Mr. Shirley, I just scrolled in the file. I don't know if there's some of these other items that you wanted to highlight.
Yeah, so I was just going to highlight the four major projects we did this year. So moving on to brighter pastures. At the middle school, we replaced the outdoor classroom right outside here, the first floor CAF in the library, with a synthetic turf. So this area gets trampled on, and there was a lot of foot traffic. So it's very difficult or impossible to grow grass, and quite frequently it'd be muddy or dirty. So the turf will help with staff and students to have lunches, have classes out there, possibly have outdoor concerts. So we're hoping that this space could get used a lot more and won't be will stand the test of time, right? So typical turf lasts anywhere from 10 to 20 years, and it can be longer if you take care of it well. So we're hoping that this space lasts for a while. Moving on to Centerville, we replaced the majority of the flooring in there. As most of you know, the elementary schools have 20-plus-year-old carpeting in most of the classrooms. 2 summers ago, we did a beta test in Centerville with 5 classrooms. We put this new product, it's called Ultra Quartz. So it allows us to not have to strip and wax like we do on VCT tile every year. So we get rid of any hazardous materials out of our yearly process. So with that, we replaced any classroom with a carpet. We put the Ultra Quartz in there, and then in the library and the main office and in a few small offices, we put 2x2 carpet squares. So the reason we did that instead of just full rolls is if something gets spilled or damaged, we could replace a square instead of having to cut out a carpet, right? So our hope is, to possibly continue this across the district, funding pending, right? I think going forward. At Ayers, we replaced the kindergarten playground. I think everyone's pretty happy with that. We gave the school a few options, and they chose what we think was a good option, and the kids are enjoying playing on there. So we're hoping to also look at other playgrounds again as funding is available. And then lastly, the Hannah, the outdoor classroom pavilion. This is not fully complete yet. All of the site work is done. The retaining wall, the concrete pad, and then the millwork is actually coming in this Friday. So we're hoping by I don't want to give a timeline, but I'd say 2 to 4 weeks that the structure will be complete. So we're hoping by the end of October.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for all that work, especially I know this work was not planned, so then that kind of puts a kink in it, in the plans of all the other work you guys had planned on doing. I'm looking around the room if anybody has any questions for Mr. Shirley about the B&G report, above and beyond what he's already spoken or something that he didn't speak to in the report. All right, I see none. I see no hands. Mr. Shirley, we always appreciate when you get to come and speak to us in person.
Well, thank you, guys.
Again, I really appreciate, because I did get to tour that area, and it was quite a mess. And so when I saw the message that we were going to be able to open school on time, I just really kind of shook my head. Incredible, really.
Definitely
thank
something we weren't expecting, nor wasn't enjoyable for most, but
No.
sometimes you have to deal with just whatever comes your way and move forward, right?
Yep.
All right, Ms. Sherburne, I'm going to go to your finance report now.
Yes, my update here. So, we're back to school. My first picture here. We're going to have a food service update talking about the Ayers cafeteria. A policy review talking about what policies the F&F will be tackling this year. And I have an FTE update for FY24 and then the financial report. So the next slide here is the Ayers Ryleside Nutrition Expedition, Great Place to Eat. So they have chose, like the other schools, the principal and the students and whoever they get together on their committee to decide has come up with this great scheme. And they actually we had to paint even the ceiling on this one because the ceiling clashed with the color scheme. So we actually did that, and we've gotten a lot of good compliments from city officials even of what we've been doing with the food service funds to increase the cafeteria looks for students. And so Ms. Leal gave me, the things, and some of the things is the rules of the school to take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of our school. And then we have one more to go, and that would be the Cove School will need to go out for an RFP So each year you have to go, if you have certain thresholds of dollars, you have to go for an RFP, and we knew we couldn't complete all the schools in one year just on the timing, so we'll be getting ready to do that, and that will be completed by the end of this school year. Dun, 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 dun. Policy. So I did send out 2 policies in the packet with the update, which just came out late this afternoon. We're not looking to discuss the policies at this meeting because we knew we didn't have much time, but I know our chairperson is going to talk about the possibility of having an earlier start at an next meeting if, so that we can get into those. But the first 2 policies that we want to tackle is the GBEBD, which is online fundraising and solicitations, crowdfunding, and the KF building rental policy, which Donna and I had, we had a KF and then we had a KFR, and we don't even know if the KFR, where it stands with, it's not in our big policy book. And then we would start with the Section D, which is the financial section of policies. And I'll turn it over to you on what you want to say.
All right, so I'm going to share something on my screen for a minute. We have this massive spreadsheet that I'm sharing right now on the screen that basically is what we call a policy map, and based on column G, whether MASC has a policy or not, and then whether Beverly has a policy, and then whether our titles match, and then over here in column J, whether our version of this policy, if we even have it, is based on the MASC version. And sometimes our version of the policy is exactly the same as MASC's, sometimes it's not the same at all, and sometimes we don't have the policy, or vice versa. Sometimes we have a policy that MASC does not have. So there's this massive, so right now I'm speaking to you with my policy chair hat on, is if we scroll over in this big map, we can see in column L to which subcommittee we think this policy should be assigned. And so any given policy, especially Ms. DeGeneva, you've probably never done this before. Mr. Rotundo, I don't think you've done this. You haven't been here. Before COVID, we would review some number of policies at every meeting. We have a policy that says every 5 years we will look at every single one of our policies, if for no other reason than to say we put our eyes on it and we kind of give it a new timestamp, and then that policy starts a new 5-year clock ticking. So at the end of last school year, we brought some new ones forward, and then we reset the time on the entire policy manual, and now we need to go through regularly. And there's also some columns over here about whether a given policy should be prioritized to be reviewed, and then our wonderful Dr. Chirocek's wonderful administrative assistant, Ms. Donna, is actually helping us by assigning the prioritized meetings, the prioritized policies to a given meeting. So the 2 that are brought in your packet today for where is your finance, for just kind of looking at, to start looking at, the GBEBD, we do not have this policy. MASC has it. They suggest we have it. The action item on this one right now sits with those 2 lovely ladies right across from me, because we have put in a set of procedures around fundraising, and specifically I think it has the procedure has a little something specific to crowdfunding. So I have asked Ms. Sherborne to work with Dr. Chirocek to say, should we modify the policy to kind of reference our procedure? Do we want to modify the procedure, knowing that we could make it skinnier if we just took MASC's policy? So there's going to be work on that side of the table, and then maybe at our next meeting, a proposed policy will come forward, and then this body will vote on it. And if this body votes to move a policy forward, then it goes to the committee of the whole, and then the whole committee gets to vote on it. So that's kind of the overall way things work. And then policy KF, building rentals, in the big chart that I just showed you, if you look in there, literally the note says, we think we have the wrong version posted. And so so we need to do a little bit of backtracking and find some meeting minutes, and regardless, make sure we post the correct version of that. And a piece of that work while we're in there, and I put "we" in quotes because unfortunately this work will fall probably mostly to Ms. Sherburne, is that our rental fees right now do not adequately cover the cost of our maintenance people that we have to hire to be able to let somebody in the community come in and rent. So there's a policy that says we rent, and then there's an accompanying form that says, you got to fill this form out, and here's how much it's going to cost you. And by the way, part of the policy says that if you're an internal group to Beverly, if you're a volunteer organization, Dr. Trocheck can waive the fee. So, but that rental form itself needs to be updated. And then there's one other little curveball that the form might be updated to take. There's one field that is covered by the school district. All other fields get handled by the recreation department. So Ms. Sherburne and I have talked, and it would just be a lot cleaner if all the fields were handled by rec. But we can't just huck it to them. We have to have some conversation with them and get agreement with them. And then again, if that field goes over to the rec to manage, then our form will have to reflect that. So potentially, there's your word, that form, which is part of this policy, really needs to be updated. And again, all that work will have to be done before it comes back to this committee. And then in general, Section D, this last little note on here, Section D, the MASC, it's like being in a library. Each section of the policy really represents something different, and Section D are finances. And so there have been a ton of updates to the financial policies. And so as the F&F chair, wearing my F&F chair hat now, I have to go through all of those updates, and I will bring forward for our next meeting a set of diffs. Here's our old policy, here's the new updates to MASC. Do we want to adopt these updates or not? And there will be a decent number of them. And because of that, I think we're going to need more time. And so I am going to propose that our next meeting, because we're barely getting through this meeting and we're not even actually doing any policy work, I'm going to propose that our next meeting a month from now start at 6 p.m. So when you get your invitation, bless you, it's going to be posted for 6 o'clock instead of 6:30. And that's why, because we have to do all this policy work. And then I think moving forward, once we get over this hurdle, this is like a big chunk of our policy work, then if we just have like maybe one policy every once in a while, we'll be able to fit it into our normal 1 hour time block. All right, does anybody have any questions on that? Speed reading off the top of my curly head. Okay, Ms. Sherburne, I'm going back to your report. It's
Okay.
yours. Tag, you're it.
The next item I have is an FY24 FTE update. So as you know, every time that we add any additional positions or an additional FTE, we need to bring it to the school committee for a vote. However, in the past, we have been doing some updates, and if we're eliminating some positions that can cover new positions that we've put in, there's no vote needed. It's just an update for you. However, if we do ever remove positions that need to come back on, then of course we would be coming to the committee to add them. So there was 3 items that we had to do over the summer, that we did over the summer. The first one is the Centerville had a 0.7 music teacher that went to a 1.0, so that was an increase of 0.3. We hired a middle school director of restorative practices. And the food service department, their FTEs was based on 40 hours, but nobody works 40 hours in the school district. Our base is 35 hours with the exception of the custodial group. So I changed all their FTEs to be changed to what it is, a percentage of 35-hour a week, which increased it by 2.03 in the whole district-wide. So what I do is I look at my staffing pattern at the end of the fiscal year. I have a number. What is it, my staffing pattern now? And I needed to do a 3.33. And we had several driver salaries positions that were never filled last year because of the driver shortage. And so therefore, I took those positions from there, so we would be making a conservative effort when we're adding drivers to be talking about that. So that's where I made the change, so that our FTE count is the same as it was last year. We did add 3 positions during the budget process, which of course came into play. So that I really was just doing as an update. I like to make sure that we tell people, so when all of a sudden you hear of a new position, you're like, well, how did we get that? Like to let you know how it happened.
And I know we're really up against time, and we probably want to look at your revenues and/or expenses, even though it's the beginning of the year. Maybe I will put on the table, and maybe at the next meeting, we can talk about the re-envisioning or the moving of whatever used to be something to middle school director of restorative practices, and kind of why, or like the thought process behind that, right? What did it used to be, and why have we reimagined it under this new name? Okay, so we'll kind of, maybe I can log that request. Sure. Okay, all right. Is that the next thing, is
So
revenues?
I'll review the revenue report, and then I'll just talk really brief about the year-to-date report. It being only the first month of school, there's not an awful lot to there. So the revenue report, here we have a budget of $72,653,940.
I'm
When we
looking for it to share, I'm sorry, Jim,
Sorry.
hold on a second. Well, you can speak to it.
When we built the budget, we had some allocations that we thought that the revolving funds would be also in addition supporting the budget. So school choice is $931,530. Circuit breaker revenue, which is offset to the tuitions, is $4,299,641. The special education tuitions is $217,446. And SEVIS is the international students that come in for 1 year is 88,000. The transportation revolving is at 218,600. The building rental fees is 365,000. And the preschool revolving is 137,110. Athletics, 209,748. So what that's telling you is that when we built the budget based on everything that we know that we need to run the school district, those items were coming over. So right now I'm saying the cost is $79,121,015. That does not talk about our grants that we've accepted and et cetera, but this is the revolving. The second column is I talk about where the money is going to be coming from, excuse me, if it's going to be coming from the any carryovers that we put. In other words, on the school choice, I am not anticipating $931,530. I'm anticipating $721,234. So therefore, because of my costs, I'm going to be using what's in our school choice revolving account, $210,296. And the special education tuition is $70,790, and down in the building rental is $131,690, for a total of $420,776. Dr. Shirachek and myself talk about the revolving accounts all the time, and we know, like, okay, if we have this amount of money, that can last us maybe, 2 years, maybe it lasts us 6 years. So we know what our revolvings are, we, built in. We don't want to charge fees for something that you're going to be, banking the money, you need to be using it. Under the circuit breaker revolving, we actually had received more money this year than we did in the previous year. That one's a little bit of different carrot, is that with the circuit breaker revolving, you can save all the money you receive in 1 year, but you have to spend it in the next year. You cannot carry any more than that. And then therefore, we have a forecasted receipts. And then in the second to last column is what we've received to date. The city appropriation, we get that allocated to us quarterly. School choice comes in monthly, and circuit breaker comes in quarterly. And some of the other fees just haven't been billed out yet. And then you can see our department fees, the transportation, building rental, preschool and the athletics, that, funding is coming in. So some of them may be monthly, some of them may be quarterly. And that each month when we look at this, we'll see how things are coming in. So I don't have any worries right now on the revolving account. School choice will change once they do the October 1st report, and then I think they do another one in March. That can fluctuate, so that you may see that number change. Circuit breaker will not change. That's something that we know what we're going to be getting in. And tuition if Bethany brings any more students back into our district from other districts, that number can increase. But she felt that the same number of students that were in last year will be here this coming year. And as far as the fees, sometimes it's based on the scholarships that are awarded. Sometimes we need to take money from the carryovers if there's more scholarships, because as you know, scholarships is, we award scholarships for people based on the federal rate, but there is no pot of money that says, okay, just grab it from that. It means we're running it with less money. And I'm out of time. The one quick thing I'll say about the year-to-date report, I don't really like to really dig deep into this right now because all the purchase orders that we carried over into this year haven't been posted to this yet. We're still in a soft roll over. Once the city does that final rollover, we really can see things. The danger on that is we may have already spent the money, but the transfer in hasn't come yet. So when you see at the bottom on the last page, you'll see that the transfers equal 0 in the second column. It just means that I've transferred within our cost center. No carryovers are moved over. And we'll dig deep into that each month, and if anybody has any specific questions, they can always email me.
Thank you, Mr. Kim from BevCam. We're officially over time. That said, I'll hold us for another second. I'm looking around the room, and Mr. Manzo, I can't see. I iconize my little pictures. I'm looking to see if anybody has any questions for Miss Sherburne. Miss Abel, I can't see Mr. Manzo. I somehow screwed up my Zoom window. Okay, seeing none, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza. The roll, Mr. Manzo.
Yes.
It's 7:32. We're calling the roll. Ms. DeGeneva,
Yes.
Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza,
Yes.
Ms. Coelho. Myself, yes. I appreciate everyone. Thank you. And I'll just, one last little plug. Our next meeting will probably be posted for 6 p.m. We'll have a lot of policy work to do. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you.
I don't have my,
Okay,
but I'll let BevCam start.
yep, we're good.
I didn't really, somebody put it on my chair.
Thank you, Ms. Visnick. Here we go. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Welcome to the Beverly School Committee. This is our Committee of the Whole meeting, and today is Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. We are meeting using the hybrid remote model. We are being recorded, streamed, and broadcast by our friends at BevCam. Thank you. On June 16, 2021, the former governor signed Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and on February 12th, and again on July 16th, 2022, he extended provisions which, among other things, allow public bodies to continue to hold meetings remotely until March 31st, 2023, and our now current governor and legislature extended this further by 2 years until March 31st, 2025. These acts specifically suspend the need for a quorum and chair to be physically present and ask their body to use technical methods to allow for safe public access. As a note, we are all present this evening, so we are actually just extending this to any members of the public that wish to join us, as well as some of our leadership team. So, as a note, we also have prior approval here in Beverly for remote participation. However, through that permission, when these acts and their extensions expire, the chair does physically need to be present with the quorum. Okay, tonight is a committee of the whole meeting, which means we do not offer the opportunity for the public to address the body. However, our next opportunity will be at our regularly scheduled meeting on Wednesday, October 11th. If you want to provide public comment at that meeting on October 11th, you may let us know in advance using residentvoice@beverlyschools.org as an email address to contact us. You may come in person, you may use this remote meeting platform, or you may send remarks for the chair to read into the record. We do ask that those remarks be limited to approximately 3 minutes. Joining us tonight are all the members of the school committee. We have various members of the district administration and leadership team. And I will just let everyone know we have full attendance here of our school committee. Online, we are joined by Dr. Andre Morgan.
Present.
Thank you. Also in the room, we have Bethany Splansky, Aaron Brown, Dr. Dot Flaherty, and Dr. Trocheck. Thank you so much. Okay. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I think, Dr. Silva, I haven't called on you for a while, and you're the closest to the flag, so please lead us. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much, Dr. Silva. Our next set of items are the approval of our meeting records. We have 2 sets to approve. One was from our April 26, 2023 Committee of the Whole. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Thank you, Ms. Visnick. Are there any edits, corrections, amendments that we need to make on that set? Seeing none, we will be able to raise our hands or say aye if you are in favor of passing those meeting records. We haven't done this in a while. Okay, so we have a 6 and 1 abstention with Mayor Cahill from the April 26. Okay. Next order of business is the August 23rd Committee of the Whole meeting when we had a brief meeting here in this room. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Coelho, thank you, Ms. Visnick. Are there any edits, corrections, or amendments that we'd like to put on the table? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing the meeting records? And we are unanimous, 7-0. Thank you so much. Dr. Churchick, over to you.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you. I have a couple of items this evening to share with you. First, I'm going to update on enrollment. These enrollment numbers were as of 9/22, so they might, as you know, we submit our official enrollment numbers on October 1, but to get these prepared, we did them on 9/22, so they might alter by a student or two. You might see some changes when the official October 1 comes out, but it's a pretty good estimate for you to all see who and how many children are sitting in our classrooms. I'm also going to give you a brief update on the after dark enrollments and the 2 different programs that we have, as well as just a little information about a CTE grant award, which we alluded to earlier in the Finance and Facilities meeting. So first, you should have received a yellow copy in your documents, and this is the copy that just sort of breaks down by school, our enrollments in each building. It's a very small paper, and so what I did was translate it into our slides that we're more accustomed to seeing. These are the slides that I used during the budget presentation, and I've added a column for FY24. So not only will you know what the enrollment in each grade level is, but you'll have the opportunity to see how it compares to previous years. One of the things about Beverly has been the steadiness of our enrollments over the years. I know that in many of our surrounding communities and in other communities around us, enrollments have fluctuated greatly, either due to the pandemic or due to just a lowering of families that are living within their communities. But our enrollments are actually really pretty steady, and you'll see that through these numbers. We opened kindergarten with 340 students. That is a little bit lower. Kindergarten enrollment is always the one that we can't judge in advance. We don't have any previous context to go with, but we have 340 students in our kindergarten classrooms this year. In first grade, 361, that was a large kindergarten class that we welcomed last year. We have 343 second graders, 374 third graders, and 389 fourth graders. We just have that was a very large couple of years in a row when we had a number of students enroll. Our overall elementary numbers are at 1807, however, and that's really just down 8 from the previous year.
Can we pause there? May I ask
Can.
a question already?
Yep.
So, like last year's first grade of 340, that rolls into this year's second grade of 343.
Correct.
So we
Always
gained
look diagonal.
we gained three
Right.
children in that age group, maybe via move-ins or
Yep.
maybe via coming back from private school. And so we, ironically enough, that the current fourth grade cohort, which was already pretty dang large,
Grew
we jumped
even
up
more.
13.
Yep. And we have families that move in and out of Beverly, and we have students. I actually asked Maddie, and she supplied me I just wanted an overall look at what the changes would have been, and were they in one school or another, and really the difference is that we have when I get to the final slide and I have a total, I'll just explain to you what the basic trends that I saw in terms of that. In general, though, as you see, we are really pretty steady. You just look at that diagonal line that goes down, and it shows you how from year to year, you can follow a cohort that way from one grade to another. At our middle school, again, fairly steady. We have 357 fifth graders, 362 sixth graders, 324 seventh graders, and 323 eighth graders. Overall enrollment at the middle school is 1366. Again, a negligible fluctuation from year to year into our total enrollments. And again, diagonally, you can follow that cohort if it goes up or down or anything like that. In high school, our rising freshmen, 329 students this year, 326 sophomores, 303 juniors, and 291 seniors, for a total enrollment at the high school right now of 1249. Our total for the district is 4593. That was a question that I was trying to figure out. That, to me, I thought, even though the numbers are small from grade to grade, it was about 60, 70, almost 70 students lower. One thing, if you remember, we had a higher number of students that were accepted to Essex Tech, so the numbers for our ninth graders are about 28 lower than normal, 30 lower than normal. Or, in other words, the numbers that left, I'll show you. They were 359 in FY23, and now they're down to 329. And those 30 students went off to Essex Tech. We often see 20 or 25. In the past years, we've had 50, and this year we had 61 students go off to Essex Tech. Although we also have students who enroll in freshman year, either through school choice. Our school choice numbers go up by 5. So there are some fluctuations there. And then the other fluctuation was in our kindergarten enrollment. We were down from the 368 to 340. So that's where, when I looked, there was really just an even number of withdrawals and enrollments at each school. There was no one particular building that we had one circumstance where at North Beverly, they had 5 students who were anticipated to go to kindergarten, and then in the month of August, they unenrolled and either went to private. Maybe they were on a waiting list at a private school. Maybe they moved. I'm not really sure what the circumstances were. But we look at it pretty closely to see if there are any trends. Again, very steady enrollments in Beverly, which is very strong, and I think, good news for us. It helps in the planning as we go forward. Our preschool numbers at this point in the year, we're at 106. Again, preschool is a rolling admission, and so we'll be admitting students into our preschool on a regular basis. So right now at 106, I think that's a pretty typical number for us this time of year. We continue to do screenings 2 more times during the year and accept students into the program, as well as students who might be in early intervention who will age into the program throughout the year. Our out-of-district numbers, and Bethany asked me to be very careful and cautious with you all. 65 is lower a low number. We love that. However, we do have, it has been very, very challenging for us to find placements for students. So we do actually know of at least 6 students who will also be added to that number. They're just awaiting placements. Placements right now, the process of finding spots throughout the state and for different, reasons and needs is challenging. So we know that number would be about 71 or 72 by the when our numbers stabilize. And then finally, homeschool. Our homeschool numbers are at 82. That number, we had some move, we had some come in, and ironically, it just ends up to be the same number as it was last year. So that is the overall enrollment information. I don't know if anybody has any particular questions on any of that.
Ms. Bisnick?
I have a handful of questions.
All right.
One of them is, are you going to show my favorite document on your screen at all?
So Donna will share that with you.
I have it on my screen.
Okay, yeah, it's
I
not,
just-
it wasn't part of the public, it wasn't because of the students and this teachers' names and all of that, so it's not a supporting document. It's just a
Okay.
document that's available. if someone-
Part of the reason why, although I love your slides, I also love that, right, every year I ask for this piece of paper
Yep.
because it shows us the class sizes for every grade at every school. And so, for instance, right now, 3rd grade at Ayers has 22 students per class, and that's the highest number. Everything else is 21, 15.
So I would caution that the 15s are, remember, we have ESSER, this is our last year of ESSER funding, and so principals have had positions that they have targeted for specific class grade levels or cohorts. Those numbers are not numbers that we will typically carry, but we have been doing that in response to the recovery. Our typical class sizes will run between 20 and 22 for grades K to 2, and 22 to 25 for grades 3 and 4.
Right, and so I guess, and part of the reason why I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about it on camera, people can either watch the video, I don't know that they're watching live right now, but there is a narrative that our schools are overcrowded. And I think when we look at these numbers are way smaller than when my children were in elementary school. And so I want to make this data as public as possible. And so when this sheet comes out in its people naming form, I hope that we can put it somewhere almost like our meeting minutes. We can quote unquote advertise it, because I don't think, we vote every year as a body whether to take school choice children or not. And I don't think 10 children in any given grade level is going to really negatively affect the class sizes that we see on here. And these class sizes, in fact, do include the school choice children. So I think it's almost like a reputation problem. And we've talked before about the fact that we're not spending money on a communications person. So I think that we would do ourselves a favor if we could get data out to support the actuals of what is in our schools right now versus this narrative that our schools are too full. That's number one. Number two, I'm kind of looking at you. Maybe I'm looking at you. What were the MSBA numbers that, if you remember, I'm thinking you're going to remember. I think Beverly Middle School was 1385, but I do not remember Beverly High School.
Yeah. So if I could, Madam President, I'll round it. Essentially, it was middle school was 1,400, high school was 1,300, if you round. And so whether it's 85 or 89, and those schools are built so that that number is actually 80% of capacity, right? So you could take, you do the math, you could take another 140, 150 kids at the middle school beyond 1,400.
And what'd you say the high school was? 1,200?
1,300.
13.
Yeah, and these were the numbers that the state allowed us to build for, right? We had to push with the state to get them from 1,300 to 1,400 at the middle school. When I say it's built for 80% capacity, it's built with the assumption that every teacher gets their own room. And so the teacher, when they have their prep period, can stay in the room they're in. But if you get to more students, you start having rooms used during teachers' free periods, things like that, right?
Right.
But there's still you still are not lacking instructional room spaces and seats for kids, even up to about 1,440.
And
I'm
so-
sorry, 1,540 at the
And
middle
so-
school, for example.
If in fact, and so now I'm going to ask this question to you, and then I'll give everybody else a chance. I'll pause, but I do have one more question. But if in fact we had someone who was asserting very vigorously that this building was overcrowded, what can we do? Can we invite them in for a tour? How can we dispel that?
I
that
think
assertion?
our numbers just attest to it. I mean, we understand what the building was, but this building is not overcrowded right now. It's built, it's running at its planned capacity. We have 1,366 students. We don't have class sizes that exceed 24 or 25 in any of our core content areas, which is the targeted number of seats that we have for our students. We have the only classes that grow extra large are any of the, like band will have more because that's made to, chorus will have more because that's made to, a couple PE classes might have more because we have spaces to facilitate that, but it is a very active building, and we have a lot of children. It's large. It's the largest middle school, I believe, in Massachusetts, but only because it spans grades 5 through 8. There are larger if you look, that have the 6 to 8 grade span level. But the facility is holding well. Sans the water, we don't have an overcrowding issue, and in our elementaries, because we were able to move our 5th grades here, again, our elementaries they're running at capacity. We would not want empty buildings. I think that we're in a position right now where our facilities are working pretty well. I think if anything in our elementaries, we're running, because of the programming that we're doing, we run a little short occasionally of some breakout spaces, but I think we've worked pretty hard to identify spaces for those. And our high school is definitely at capacity, as it should be. But again, as the mayor pointed out, we have some teachers who travel or move between classrooms as well. You would think you would have in a high school facility. I don't believe we don't have nearly as many that do that. I don't think we have any core teachers that do that here. Maybe a couple world language teachers might, but for the most part, I think everybody's pretty stable. So, I don't really know.
Are there other member questions? We'll go back to Ms. Bisnick.
Thank you. So this question is, I believe, well, it might be for you, but it's maybe for the mayor. And I realize that I'm probably not getting an answer this evening, but I would like it if we could, at a subsequent meeting, talk about how many children came to us from Anchor Point and what's the status of the 40S money.
I'd have to look up.
I know. That's why I said a subsequent meeting. Again, from a myth dispelling point of view, my quest is to dispel some myths, and I've been trying to dispel them one at a time when people make certain assertions. And this is just a forum where we can do a whole bunch at once instead of one-offs. So, but I'm not so worried about the number from Anchor Point as I am about the 40S money. We've talked about it briefly in the past, but we haven't had an update. So if we could put that on maybe the next FNF meeting, that's where it really belongs. I don't know.
And
I know Aaron has reported on that.
Madam President, my perception with the 40S money is it's like most state funding. It follows on the prior year's enrollment numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And 40S, like Chapter 70, is something that has to be appropriated each year by the legislature in their budget process.
And there are some thresholds that are involved in 40S, correct, Aaron? I believe there are some thresholds that we have to meet in terms of number and capacity, and it has to do with there is a formula that gets applied to it. And I know that Aaron has been working with the department, right? Yeah, so we can bring more information to a FNF meeting in the future.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for people playing along at home, 40S is a whole nother mechanism of funding that we get because we built Anchor Point, because we have some number of children coming into our schools from that specific affordable housing unit. And I kind of had thought, though, that it was that money. There's another reimbursement money that goes right to the city. So I don't know.
So Madam President, so the 40, there is an upfront 40R sum of money that came with the, I'll check on that, in terms of both amount and when it came in or is coming in.
We can-
But that's money that comes with the adoption of the special zoning.
Right, but then
the
every
40R
year we should
zone
get
for the
40S.
actual construction or you get a credit per unit. And so let me check on that. I think that's more for kind of basic local infrastructure support needs. And then, as you said, the 40S related is to help with the cost of educating kids who may move into those.
But 40S is a one-time per kid based upon enrollment time. So what we would have claimed in the last year would have been anyone that was in by October 1. Majority of the housing units weren't available on October 1 in that particular development that you're talking about. So that would come in next year's claim, and then it comes in arrears. So that's the formula that you're talking about. So it's the claim, there's a claiming process.
You said one time. I'm not sure I understand it that way.
No, I think it's every year,
40S
exactly.
is a,
Yeah, well, I thought you meant you capture it.
You capture it one time.
Yeah,
In
okay,
the
fair.
October 1 report, and you captured on October 1, and then you capture, so if they moved in on October 6th, they were not captured on October 1.
Right. So I don't think that I have seen that as wearing my chair of F&F hat. I don't think that I'm seeing a line item that says 40S
Comes-
or
right.
if that it's in a grant or it's somewhere where we accepted it. And so if the problem is that last year, October 1, the residents weren't moved in yet, fine. But I just like to know where it is on the line
Yeah,
item somewhere.
we'll bring you more information, because the process of distribution may be through Chapter 70, so it may be just like the Chapter 74 money comes through Chapter 70, so that's probably why it wouldn't need a separate acceptance, but now I'm way out of my ballpark without Jean here, so I'm going to wait until Jean's
I know, we
here
let her
and
go home.
answer the
We
rest
let
of
her
the
go
questions.
home. Thank you.
So, all right. All right.
Okay.
All right, thank
No
you.
further questions?
And so this is just a quick update After Dark. I alluded to this earlier. We're very excited to have expanded our After Dark partnerships. As you know, we have a very successful After Dark partnership with Essex North Shore, Essex Tech and SAT. And we expanded and applied through DESE to expand to be able to utilize the vocational programming, career and technical education programming at Salem High School. We are the first public-public partnership, so the majority of the After Dark partnerships are between a public school district and a vocational school. Salem High School and Beverly High School are the first two to have a public-public partnership. We worked with DESE throughout the year. They were extremely helpful and cooperative. We needed to share with them information about what the schedule would look like, how would they be receiving their core academics at the local high school. Salem had to commit to 900 plus hours of Chapter 74 instruction at the technical high school. All of the work that we did has to align with the regional economic and workforce development priorities. We entered into an MOU with Salem for both fiscal and programmatic components. The Salem staff has been phenomenal. Mario Souza is the director over there, and he came and set up and had a parent night for our parents, for students that are going there. And in terms of the equitable admissions criteria, Salem High School is one of the few vocational high schools that are working through a lottery system. So they absolutely adhere to a lottery system in terms of admissions policies. So I'm super excited to be part of partnering with him. Dr. Stevens Reich, who's the superintendent there, is awesome. He's happy to come, answer any questions that anybody has, but I told him I would come forward and at least let you know where we are with that. We have just juniors, because it was only open to rising juniors, and we have right now 8 juniors that are currently enrolled. 5 of them in the automotive technology program over there, which, by the way, also includes marine technology. So I think that's kind of interesting in that shop. It's a combination of the two, and then we have 3 that are in health assisting. We will be working with them throughout the year, working hard to, make sure our students are settling in nicely, make sure that it's working well. We provide transportation. Students are transported. They leave the Beverly High School at 11 o'clock on transportation, and they get to Salem High School. They attend their programs, and then they're returned home and by bus to their bus stops near their homes. So we're really excited about this. We kind of went into this partnership a little bit out of necessity. Essex Tech, as you remember, when they presented to us, had originally had 6 disciplines that were open for students to apply to. They, and they were, I think, pretty transparent about it at the time. Those are offered based upon availability of space within their facility. That had dwindled down to just, well, actually, at one point, they were almost not able to take any students. We were figure out where we're going to send our students, because we believe this is a really important part of options that we can offer. They subsequently opened 2 pathways, or I think 3 pathways for our kids. So I do have the data on who's attending at Essex Tech. We have in the construction and craft laborers, we have 3 seniors and 3 juniors. In health assisting, that was a new one that they opened for us this year. We have 7 students. Sustainable horticulture, we have 1 senior and 3 juniors. And then auto tech, for them, they were not offering auto tech for us this year. So auto tech has just 4 seniors. And so thus, we found a place at Salem High, and I think now we're actually, we have the benefit of both. We have the opportunity to continue our partnership with both and give more options to our students as we go forward. And so that's sort of the numbers that we have attending.
Dr. Silva.
Do you have a sense of how many students would like to have gone to Essex Tech or a vocational?
You mean that for the After Dark program? Yeah, we
yes,
originally,
that were not able
yeah,
to.
we had 31 applicants for junior year, and of the applicants, 13 of them are at Essex Tech. All of the remaining were offered the available programming at Salem, and of the ones, so everyone had an option to be able to go, but only to limited. It was just the limited discipline. So if you had wanted something that wasn't available and no longer offered, then that was where it was restricted. But
Does
Something like, electrical?
like electrical, or just electrical, maybe not electrical, but maybe just electrical.
The Irish electrical.
Maybe E,
No, that's
electrical.
fine. Is Essex Tech expanding?
Is it expanding?
Yes, I know that there was some
I believe they have some
construction.
proposals out to expand. They're looking to expand into marketing and into education. I'm not really,
And do you know if that would open up additional
No.
opportunities?
I don't know. Again, the availability of the seats that we get from 11 to 2 has to do with the number of students that they have from their rise. And remember, we have 61 students that got in as freshmen. So Beverly is sending more students to the Tech, but there are just more that are going in as freshmen. And as they fill those seats, then they're not available to take part in the After Dark programming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll go with Ms. Robinson first.
Thank you. So with this information, what are we going to do for next year? How are
Great
we going
question.
to look to the future?
So one of the things we accepted earlier in the FNF meeting, 2 different new grants. One grant that I'll share with you in a minute that is directly related to the Salem High partnership that we got. But we also got a planning grant for our innovative pathways, because Chapter 74 is not the only way to have pathway outcomes for students. We're working on developing and strengthening our pathway options within Beverly High. And we're going to continue. I mean, I'm hoping to work with Heidi at Essex Tech to find out what will be offered through Essex Tech. And Salem has 6 different shops that they have. This year, we got approval for the 2 that were regional workforce related. And so continuing to work with Mario and with Dr. Reich over there to kind of see what we can expand and what we can open up for opportunities. There are pathway, so the getting a designation of an innovative pathways district offers us the opportunity to kind of look at internal pathway opportunities that we can get that are credentialed, and that will be something that we can offer our students. I know that Mark Thomas at the high school is, very invested. Julie Ferrara, who is our Director of Career and College Readiness over there, all working, again, also even with Megan Sudak, who's our Director of City Connects, kind of really digging in, and they're the ones that crafted these grants and are really working to kind of build and become more, have more offerings for pathways within our own school and at some of these unique partnerships that we have.
Just to add on to that, are we looking at other schools as well?
I have not at this time. So I will say there are unique opportunities at some of the other. Whittier has some programs that are a little different than Essex Tech has, but I think right now we're kind of going to really want to build at the two that we have going.
Ms. Visnick.
First a comment and then a question. Dr. Silva, the superintendent
Dr. Zreich.
of Essex,
Oh, Dr. Riccio.
Dr. Riccio came here probably 2 years ago?
No, more.
More than 2.
At least 4 or 5. yeah.
Really? Okay, I'm old. And but I specifically asked her at that time about whether they would expand because the demand certainly seems to be such that we'd probably like to send a lot more children over there, and other districts are in the same boat. I believe her answer was they were building one new building on the campus at that point in time, and their construction children were very involved in building that building, so you might imagine that makes it take a little longer. And they had no further plans of physical plant expansion. And so that is what's limiting how many children we can send over there, right? Or collectively, how many children can fit in their buildings. And so that answer made me a little sad. I would like to see personally, and maybe we can get her to come back and speak to us again.
We can, and also, don't forget Paul Manzo is the school committee member.
That's right,
that
our Beverly
represents
representative, school committee member. It used to be our chair here. And, one of the things that I asked was if she would consider perhaps having satellite campuses, because I could very easily envision having an electrical classroom set up over in the shoe. And so that didn't go over very well in that
So
particular conversation.
I will say, and I don't want to put things out that may or may not ever happen, but we have been examining opportunities. So, and I'm learning from other communities about different ways of expanding. So Revere High School, and has a backwards after dark, if you want to call it that. So they have a scenario where they've partnered with their vocational school, and they have a vocational teacher who works half-time there and then half-time comes to, and so they deliver some of those services on site. So there are, and I will say DESE has a huge investment right now in trying to figure out how we can provide and become more flexible and provide more service, more opportunities for kids in the trades, in any of the, technical fields. So we're exploring a lot of different ways and a lot of different options. Beverly has, it's been a challenge because there was, I think, an understanding that we couldn't have Chapter 74 programming, but that's not the case.
I was just going to ask, right.
The truth is we can, but we have to meet all those criteria that I met here. First, we have to show that there's an interest. We have to show that there's a lack of seats somewhere else. We have to show that it's a workforce, a priority, a regional economic and workforce priority. So there are some stipulations that you have to meet, but we are not technically precluded from finding a way to provide Chapter 74 opportunities for our kids. And a good example is the partnership that we have at Salem. We went in one direction and we found ways to do that. I actually think there are more opportunities, and I know that, the high school administration is invested in examining and looking at how we can do that. And, sometimes the question is it Chapter 74 that's the right pathway or the innovative pathways? Because credentialing is credentialing, and depending on what it looks like and how you get there, there's more than one way to get to what we need to get to.
So where does the non-compete with Essex Tech, that's not on the slide?
It has to do with whether or not, so the same thing, because they had to sign off when we went for our After Dark partnership at Salem High School. But if they don't have seats available and and we prove a shortage of availability for our students, we can find another direction to go in.
So we could potentially
Well, again,
Open an electrical classroom?
I can't say that, we don't have a facility at Beverly High School for that right now, so it would mean, and being approved for that type of a program is a lot, the challenge comes from having the facility examined, having a parent group, like, a community group. There's a lot, it's not something that just happens overnight. However, yes, the answer is we're not precluded from, if that was something that we wanted to look at, how we would do that.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Dr. Trocheck? Thank you.
All right, my very last slide is just to share with you, we did apply for and have been awarded a Career and Technical Education Partnership Grant. This is the funding that we went to. This will bridge the cost of partnering with Salem High School right now for the differential in cost for our students to attend there. We can utilize it for transportation for our students to get them there and to get them back. So this is this is just a grant, and you accepted it, or you'll be accepting it in later tonight when you read that, or next time when you read that. So I just the idea that there's funding available to look at proposing new or expanded partnerships, that's really, what we were aiming for. And I think it's sort of, I'm learning in year 4 that a lot of the opportunities beget new opportunities, right? And when you dig into the CTE and you learn more about it, and you get certain designations for your district, then more opportunities open up. And so that's what we're exploring, and that's the direction that we're trying to move in. So I'm really excited about the work that we're doing in that area, and I look forward to kind of hoping to bring you more on some of that.
Dr. Silva.
I guess the only comment I'll make is that, given the number of students at the high school, roughly 1,800, 1,300, sorry. So
1249.
I would think, you'd want to be in a situation where 5 or 10% of that population you can, or that student group, you'd be able to give options, or, how the numbers, to be able to accommodate a certain fraction of the capacity of the high school.
I think a lot of it has to do with interest, right? I mean, what we really want to do is, and it's really the work. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I think at one of the meeting just like this, I sort of was given the charge from the school committee. What are we doing? How are we going to be able to meet the needs for kids? And so the work that we've done to expand has really taken place down in the middle school, where in grades 7 and 8, we're doing a lot more work on career exploration. We hired a guidance counselor for grade 8, Maggie Lilly, who works really hard with the 8th graders as they're preparing to go to high school, about thinking about that. The work that we've done within the high school in our Naviance program, and with Julie Ferrara as our career and college readiness director, to kind of help kids better understand what they need, so that when they're in that freshman and sophomore year and they're kind of going, oh, I'm not so sure about a 4-year college, we have, direction and opportunities, and taking a look at the pathways that we have, because we do have strong pathways right now that we're developing for, and looking at what are those areas. Is it hospitality? Is it, where can we grow and where can we branch out? So I'm not sure that there's a finite number, but I certainly I think that the data that we collect from our students when we're having these discussions, and through some of the surveys that are being done at the high school, helps us know where do we need to go and what's the desire. And so hopefully that will keep us moving in that direction.
Okay, thank you.
Since I've been so quiet, I'm going to call on myself. And I would say anecdotally, I do hear each year, a number of 8th graders that are intrigued by what Essex Tech has to offer, and they get invested in the process. And there's disappointment when they don't quite fit, or they don't get, on the list and get over there. And so to have more opportunities at Beverly High School, even where we can really meet the needs of our students and meet their expectations and their enthusiasm for some of the careers.
And the hope is that that kids want to go to Beverly High School, and that Beverly High School can offer them what they need, because there are, there's always, the grass sometimes looks greener, but sometimes when you dig deeper, we have so much to offer at Beverly High. And, Mark Thomas, when I was right after we had hired him and I was having my first meeting with him, he said, I want every kid that, starts off wearing their Beverly shirt when they're 6 in soccer or in lacrosse, or that we build this Beverly pride, and that we want kids to want to go to Beverly High. I mean, I understand the need and the desire to have kids understand what options are out there for them, but we want them to want to come to Beverly High, and we want Beverly High to be able to offer them what they need. And that's our goal, that we're building programming within our own high school, or options within our own high school. The beauty of the After Dark is they're still Beverly High School students. They're accessing some of these other opportunities, but they're still Beverly High students, and they're going to graduate from Beverly High. So it's all part of the planning that we're doing.
Saw Ms. Coelho's hand.
And they can still be Beverly High kids and still have the careers and the technologies. Like I had mentioned in a few meetings before, I was half a North Shore Tech kid, half a Beverly High kid, because I came to this Beverly High for one of my shops. We
Yep.
can have it again and then keep the kids here.
Yep, that's the goal.
Okay. Thank you again for your report. I'm not sure if I want to call on Ms. Visnick, but in our meeting just prior to this, I heard her give a good primer on the policy work that we have before us. And just to summarize that for expedience sake, we at the end of the spring session reset the clock on all of our policies. One of our policies, in fact, says every 5 years we will have looked at each of our policies. And so what we are endeavoring to do is to make it a regular practice again to bring forward policies that have either been updated by MASC or by federal or state laws, or have some other characteristics by which we need to make an evaluation. In tonight's package, we're starting slowly. We have a few different policies that are identified as having had MASC updates and or differences in our policy to that policy. Ms. Visnick, do you want to jump in? I did my SysDiff, so I only have a few things to say, but if you have something.
Or do you want me to try to repeat what I said at the FNF?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Would you like me to share my screen and share the map?
You're welcome to.
Let me just make sure I still have it open. All right, I don't have it open, so I'm withdrawing my offer to share my screen. So I apologize, but it's on videotape thanks to BevCam. So we have this big giant Excel spreadsheet. Well, it's a Google sheet that lists every MASC policy and every Beverly policy, and sometimes we both have a given policy, sometimes one of us has it and the other doesn't. There's a column that represents if we have a policy, does it come from MASC or not? And there's a column that as the policy chair, I've kind of gone through and like triaged out of the policy updates from MASC, which policies are more urgently needing a review. And some of those things have to do with legal references changing. That's one example of why you'd get something that needs to be reviewed more urgently than something else. And then there's a column for what meeting that the review will be assigned to. And whether a subcommittee, and there's a column of which subcommittee gets to look at this particular policy. And in fact, that assignment might be this meeting as opposed to FNF or CISL or the policy group itself. And so if a given group looks at a policy and there are changes and they vote to bring it forward, then it'll come forward to this group. This group will review it, discuss it. It comes for a first reading and then a second reading. So procedurally speaking, you get to put your eyes on it in one meeting. You get a whole month to think about it. In the second meeting, somebody makes a motion to accept it, and then we debate whether to accept it or not. And then, potentially it's a brand new policy and we really accept it into our manuals, but maybe it's an update. And so all of that discussion happens, and that will be, I imagine, fairly regular moving forward in all of our meetings. And so a couple of weeks ago, our friends in Sissel were the first to start this process, and our wonderful Miss Donna assigns them to the meetings, and then will keep us, goodness gracious, bless her, for keeping us on track and assigning some to each subcommittee for each meeting so that we'll get through the whole book by the end of the 5 years. Yes, I believe that I'm done. Yes.
Yes. And for those of us who haven't necessarily read cover to cover the policy manual, it's also kind of enlightening to say, oh, we said that. Is that what we do? Right? And we can reflect. So the first set that we are receiving tonight is actually assigned to the committee of the whole to determine if any change is warranted. If so, those changes would go forward to a first reading. If we decide tonight that we've reviewed it and we're satisfied as it stands, we'll simply mark the date that it's been reviewed, and that will reset the clock. And then ideally what we will be doing for each of these is to actually do a compare document if we get an MASC version and a Beverly version. In these cases, the changes are so subtle that I'm just going to say that we call our school committee chair the president in our documents, and they don't. And then they've deleted the word school in front of the word committee a few places. So I'm looking at use of electronic messages by school committee members, BHE, Bravo Hotel Echo. And I think there's just one extra piece of citation in ours for our legal references, and I am not able to click on the link to see if it's a better reference or a more specific paragraph within the stated reference. But as I look at this BHE, I think this adequately reflects our current practices, and I'm comfortable not making it match verbatim to MASC. I'm not sure we would necessarily want to bring it through the whole process of a first read, a second read. And so I think I'm prone to just say reviewed as of today's date, but I don't know if there was something else that the policy subcommittee was expecting with some of these.
So I should have added that in this master spreadsheet, there's often notes about why a policy has been flagged as being prioritized, but maybe this one wasn't prioritized. It's just that some got assigned.
I think she gave us a softball for the first one.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ms. Bergeron probably saw this one as a good opportunity for us to become familiar with our own policy about the use of electronic messages. And to note, there was an MASC update in 2022, but I think it was strictly for removing the extra words of school before the word committee. Anyway, other questions on the process, or shall I make a motion to mark this as reviewed as of 27 September 23?
I would second that motion.
Okay, so I've made the motion and there is a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? This one has been reviewed. Thank you. 7-0 unanimous. Okay, if we jump to the next one about minutes, it's very much the same, with one exception. I'm noticing that the MASC version actually has a specific sentence that states minutes of all meetings shall be created and approved in a timely manner, which is defined in regulation as within 3 meetings of the body or within 30 days, whichever is later. And as that sentence actually states, it is defined in regulation for our open meeting laws. If we wanted to entertain this as a policy that we want to update to match the MASC version, we would entertain a motion to that effect this evening. We would mark it up with the interested changes that we have, and then we would bring it for a first and a second reading. Mayor Cahill.
Question, do you want to, okay. So typically, we will take up minutes for a regular school committee meeting at the next regular school committee meeting. So this count of up to 3, it doesn't count a school committee of the whole as one of them. Okay. And so we typically aren't taking 4 months, 3 meetings to get to minutes.
Right.
I'm just thinking aloud, so we should have a comfort level with an ability to do this. And you said it's in what regulation?
So in our open meeting law regulations, they have this documented, and in the training we receive.
In the regulations that implement the state statute, the open meeting law?
Yes, so.
Not
this-
ours, but the.
Not ours, the MGL 30A 2266.
Right.
Yeah. So it's redundant to something that we're referencing, a legal reference. It is, I think MASC puts it here because it's a good reminder to school committee members, especially new members, that that's what we endeavor to do. I don't think that we have a problem with it. Yes.
I don't think we have a problem with it either. However, I think that the wording here, which is defined in regulation, would like a non-lawyer person know that the regulation is one of these MGLs named below? I mean, it would be easy enough to put like, as defined in regulation MGL 30A-22, even though we have a section, right? Like put the reference up there as well, would just make it more obvious that it didn't just come out of thin air, or for somebody to go, well, what regulation is that?
Well, and so Mayor Cahill just hit on a point. There is a reference to 940 CMR 29.00. I don't know how to say that in legalese, but we don't have that cross-reference. And so it might behoove us to take this one to a first reading by including the sentence, including the additional cross-reference. And then they actually also cross-reference BEC executive session. And that's not a policy that we had adopted. So we wouldn't necessarily take all of MASC's suggestions, but maybe the two, add the CMR, add the sentence. Yes.
Do you mind if I show off my legal training?
Sure.
So, so what I've learned over time, as a former legislator and a lawyer, legislatures pass laws. Most of the time, if it's a complex law, it'll be a state or a federal agency that then promulgates, that's the verb they use to write and put into effect, regulations to implement the law. So in Massachusetts, CMR stands for Commonwealth of Mass Regulations. So I just don't get to use my law degree that often. I try to, the solicitor stops me.
We'll
Okay.
invite her. No, I'm kidding.
So we're still at the table looking for a motion whether we want to make some slight adjustments to our current policy to forward it as a first reading or not. So I'm looking for a motion. Mark it as reviewed, make some edits,
So moved.
to make some small edits as indicated the CMR reference and add the sentence. Correct?
Still so moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Cahill. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Are there any further discussions? We will have Ms. Bergeron circulate that for a first reading at our next policy work. Okay, and then
We didn't vote. We got to vote.
we get a vote. All those in favor, I forgot. We don't have to do the roll call vote, but we do need to raise the hands. Thank you, 7-0. Okay. And then the next one in this packet was BID, and this is an example. I think these are just like three good examples to get us started, where our BID actually references our own city charter, where city council by ordinance may provide an annual salary for members of the school committee. No ordinance increasing salary should be effective. So for instance, in this case, we have city charter, Article 4, and the cross references to Section 1E. For the version in our packet from MASC, you can see that they actually have a whole bunch of wording because they don't know if a city charter is a Plan D or a Plan E or anything along those lines. And so I would say for us, our version of BID is the appropriate version to have on record. But if there's any difference of opinion, you would want to make a motion at this time to revisit our BID. Ms. Visnick.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
this is a procedural question. As you bring these forward and you say, okay, we're going to keep ours, are you checking the master spreadsheet to make sure, or do I have to do that as the policy chair?
I would
That the mas-
appreciate your assistance and backup in case there's something I missed when I did assist Steph.
Okay, I'm taking notes.
On this one, I truly think because it was in the same section and it was a good example of where we intentionally have a policy that differs from the sample, we can evaluate it and say, for instance, I make a motion to mark this reviewed as of the 27th of September. Is anyone going to make that motion? I'll make that. Okay, thank
make
you.
that motion.
Ms. Coelho, is there a second? That we're going to mark this as reviewed as of today's date.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mackenzie DeFranza.
And we're not interested in making the changes that are there.
The changes are for Plan D communities and Plan E charters, and we have our own home rule charter, so their changes, I think, aren't material to our situation, where we've cited our own city charter Article 4.
I agree. Can I ask a question about whether we might want to make an amendment to this policy on our own? There's no reference to the charter, and if I'm understanding it right,
He's looking at the one in the packet. You didn't send did you?
no, this is ours, right?
Ours has the city charter Article 4, Section
Right.
4.
Right.
Yep.
In the language of the policy, I'm just wondering if it might be helpful where, if on the second line it said, however, pursuant to the Beverly City Charter, unless it shall have been adopted during, et cetera. I know it's referenced below. There's no reference to it in the language.
Oh, in the actual language. Oh, so it's a city council by ordinance, but it doesn't say as granted by the charter.
If I understand right, it's the charter that says it has to take place in the first year of a two-year term, only to take effect for the next elected school committee, right? Just as it does for city council and mayor. And it might be cleaner, it might be better,
But
it might
we're
be
not-
better explained if that reference was there.
But that rule applies to quote unquote us based on what the city council does, right? That we don't get a vote in that, right? We're not the ones voting. Like city council did that a year ago, and if some number of us get reelected and we're sitting here on January 2nd, then the pay raise will take effect. But we didn't have any say in that. That rule really applies to the city council and how they handle their business about determining what we should get paid.
Oh, no, I hear you.
So I don't think, so because of that, I would not say that it behooves us to put any more language in our policy about it. We get paid. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It just shows, it refers anybody who might be reading this to the charter, as opposed to that, the charter being referenced underneath doesn't tell me much.
Okay, so as an devil's advocate, I think many of our policies would have the reference to IDA or FAPE or any number of regulations, and we don't necessarily put that in the language either. We depend on this cross-reference section in a lot of our policies. I think this is an example of one that could be good. We do have a motion on the table to keep it as it is, mark it as reviewed, but we can also put a friendly amendment on here to insert. But I don't know.
I don't mind letting it land
Yeah.
if somebody decides later it's a good idea. I was just
Yeah.
thinking aloud with you.
Okay. Do we want to amend the motion on the table or do we want to vote? Vote?
I'd say vote.
Okay. All those for marking it as reviewed tonight? 7-0. Okay. Thank you. And there's one, I actually didn't even bother printing it out because it was kind of, in my opinion, a little bit of a waste of paper, but it was definitely another example for us this evening to consider. MASC had created a bunch of policies during the COVID time period to help school districts in adopting different protocols and policies, and one such was EBCFA for face coverings and EBC-S policy on COVID-related issues. So this is an example that we brought forward as something that exists in the MASC sample policies and we had not adopted. And so this would be an opportunity if anyone had looked at those policies and had an interest in adopting them, they would make a motion this evening to bring it forward for an official first reading with or without any changes that they wanted to recommend. And the alternative motion would be a pass for now. Ms. Bisnick.
I just want to add on, like, earlier in F&F, we talked about a policy that MASC has about crowdfunding, and we don't have that policy right now, but we have a procedure that we put in place relative to fundraising. So sometimes we have the gist or the spirit of something, but we might have it in a procedure. So I believe relative to face coverings, we had procedures in place. And so relative to these two, I would like to ask Dr. Chirocek what she thinks. Do we even want to think about having these policies if goodness gracious, we have to go back to them? It is always nice to have a policy upon which to lean, or if we'd be okay knowing that we had procedures in place previously when we were in such a bad time as to have to make everybody wear a face covering. Do you have any opinion on that, Dr. Troche?
I think back at the time, I thought the procedures were adequate, and I continue to feel that way. I don't think we need a policy for it right now. I think we would be able to manage the scenario the same way we did in the past.
Yes. If memory serves me, procedures are much more agile and allow the superintendent's recommendations to be enacted pretty immediately. And we, at the time, felt this first reading, second reading, it was just too
the
much.
guidance was changing so swiftly that we were, I think that we felt like, we were better off with the procedures and, following the procedures. And we worked through them pretty well. So I would stick with that right now.
Given that, I would make a motion that we not adopt these.
Second.
A motion from Ms. Bisnick, a second from Mayor Cahill. Any other further discussion? All those who agreed not to adopt the face covering policies, 7-0. Okay. Hopefully that was painless enough and a flavor for what we will have to look forward to in our future committee of the whole meetings. Again, if we can just get them on a regular cycle, they should be light work. Okay. We also had in our CISL meeting last time a few recommendations from CISL about the action this committee would take. For first readings, we are bringing forward IHBEA, which is English Language Learners is the description. However, English Learners is the edit. I need to find that one. And so during the CISL meeting, a number of edits were shown to us by Dr. Flaherty, and she gave us a really good reflection on why these changes are recommended. And we were going to work on getting track changes versions. I can't remember if that was in the packet tonight, but we will take this up at our next meeting for a second reading, unless there's Dr. Chirocek?
Yeah, just want to change it in the, when you're reading when it says it's English language education, English learner education is the title.
Learners
English
education.
learner education.
We'll make sure on the next agenda we reflect that title.
Yep.
And then for tonight's purposes, this would be an opportunity if you had questions for Dr. Flaherty, who presented, or any additional edits or revisions, we would bring them forward now so that at our second reading we would be in a position to adopt the changes. Ms. Visnick?
Especially because it's our first meeting for some people, this is the first time doing this. But even if it's not your first time doing this, I don't think you have to bring forward your recommendations at this meeting. It's preferred.
It's preferred so people can debate and talk about it, but at the next meeting, all of our final edits will be placed on the table and then we'll vote on that.
Right.
Yep. It's to give us time for contemplation, reflection. First readings typically go much faster than this. But I just want to make sure people are aware of the process, understand the changes were recommended from the CISL subcommittee. I think, there's no voting on this evening because it's just the first reading, but I was supposed to read this. The Standing Committee on Curriculum Instruction and Student Life recommends the attached policy, Section I, IH, BEA, English, and this is where it's English learner education. Okay. And the second reading will take place on October 11th, 2023. And for all policy changes, we do require a formal 2/3 vote approval by the school committee. So, moving along, the next recommendation from CISL is for our Section A ACA. This is our non-discrimination policy. And similarly, some edits were made, changing words such as school system to reflect school district, and then adding our sexual orientation or gender identity to basis of sex in the two places where that exists. Also updating source references. The U.S. Department of Education issued a notice of interpretation, for instance, and we also have another policy on harassment in our policies, and so we wanted to add a cross-reference to that. And I'm probably missing something on that. Dr. Flaherty, I'm sorry, do you remember, were there any others? It was just changing the word school system to school district, adding sexual orientation and gender identity, and adding the cross-references. Oh, and into the title, yes. I see my arrow here now. Okay. So if there's no discussion on this tonight, we'll bring this back on our October 11th meeting, and we will do our second reading and approval of the changes recommended by our CISL committee. Okay. And then the third is our JB, Equal Education Opportunities. And I might not have this one printed out. Oh, it's, it printed on the back side of this. Okay. So in this case, MASC actually issued a recommendation for the removal of policy JB because it cross-references a redundant policy. So basically, it exists twice. And they felt it could be removed from this section, and our Standing Committee on Curriculum Instruction and Student Life agreed, if I'm remembering correctly, agreed unanimously. I see Dr. Silva and I made the motion to remove JB from our policy, and so we would take a vote at the next meeting to officially remove JB. I think we had an action item, though, to specify exactly which one covers this topic for equal education opportunities. So we'll bring that to the next meeting. Okay. And now we have had a policy subcommittee in between our last two meetings, and there were a couple of actions or recommendations from that meeting. It looks like we were provided IJLA, which is regarding library resources. This is an MASC sample. The policy subcommittee, you can go ahead and speak, Ms. Visnick, because I wasn't at that meeting. So.
Okay, so at the end of last school year, we voted as a body to adopt IJL. And that had to do with mostly selection of resources for the library. And MASC has, but we do not have IJLA, which goes a little deeper conceptually. I think that it talks more about weeding when, and how to get rid of items in a library. When do they get out of date? Who makes that determination? And then physically, what do you do with a resource that you've deemed worthy to be weeded? So IJLA speaks to those things. The policy subcommittee did not take the MASC version. Rather, we took some parts of it and we crafted our own, working with Dr. Trocheck and the librarians. So the policy you have in front of you for a first reading is quote unquote approved by our school administration and our school librarians, as well as the policy subcommittee, and it makes reference to the librarians have a working procedural document. And so that reference to that working document is in our specific version of the policy that you have for a first reading.
Thank you for that added clarity. I was a little fooled by the MASC reference, but I now see it has a / Beverly, so we've added our own flavor to this. Great. Are there any questions or comments on this policy? We will see it at our October 11th meeting for adoption. And the next item, CHC, Development and Dissemination of Procedures. Ms. Visnick, I wasn't at the meeting, so please share.
So this MASC had two policies, CHA and CHC, as did we, and they're simply combining them into one. And so, again, the policy subcommittee checked with school administration, and school administration is happy with the combination. There's like one little, well, it's a paragraph, but it's only a sentence that gets removed because it was in both. You can see that if you look at them separately, but it's really the same exact thing. And it's not often that we get to get rid of a policy, and the policy manual is really pretty big. So whenever we can combine, and based on the fact especially that MASC recommended this combination, that's why the policy committee is bringing forward that recommendation.
Thank you so much. If there's no questions or comments on this policy, we'll see it again on October 11th. Okay. In terms of upcoming dates, I want to remind folks of our October 11th meeting, which I just referenced a number of times. We will have our Student Advisory Council meeting with us at 6 p.m. That's not broadcast on BevCam. It is here, and hybrid options do exist, because then at 6:30 we have our Curriculum Instruction Student Life meeting. And we did have our middle school we had our high school students last time. A couple middle school. We'll see more of our students at that meeting. And our regular school committee meeting will be at 7:30, again, on the 11th. We also have Finance and Facilities and Committee of the Whole on the 25th, as was just determined at our Finance and Facilities meeting this evening. They will be starting at 6 because they have a number of policies in Section D to do a deeper dive on. So we'll give them an extra half hour to get some work completed. I also wanted to issue a reminder that in our last meeting, we moved our November CISL and regular school committee to the 15th. So if you'd already put it on your calendar for the 8th, please do make sure you've moved it to the 15th. And then our final topic is our retreat. By our own policy, we agreed to have a retreat yearly, and I think that we decided that this year we could actually use some time to discuss the school calendar in advance of the recommended calendar for school year 25. Seems like time is marching too quickly. And I've been looking at dates. I have 3 dates to suggest. I also just want to confirm that is the topic we wish to address before the end of our term, because we do need to have this before the end of our term. Wednesday, October 18th at 6:30, November 1st at 6:30, or December 6th at 6:30. Again, it's a topic we would generally... December 6th? Oh. So October 18th appears to be available, but I don't know everyone's personal calendars. November 1st or December 6th. and we can pick a different location. We do post it as an open public meeting, but generally we don't invite our friends from BevCam, and we just take our own minutes. And if members of the public are interested, they're welcome to watch our meeting. Ms. Visnick.
I would like to say no to the first date, Wednesday, October 18th. I have a conflict.
Okay. Are people interested in November 1st or December 6th? We're running out of runway, so we got to pick a date. December 6th? You can't December 6th.
I'd prefer the 1st of November.
Oh, goodness.
I would also
Aren't we all
probably
busy?
prefer the 1st of November.
1st of November.
May I ask our gentleman who asked for December, you said prefer. How hard a preference is that?
If it's a little later,
Microphone. Oh, so a later start,
later start.
like a 7 p.m.?
7 would be better.
And if I bring food?
I'll try to get here earlier.
Okay. Okay.
I can also defer.
Does it sound reasonable then for Wednesday, November 1st? It's All Saints Day, but I don't know.
Yes.
Good, we'll have lots of candy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we will have lots
We'll
of
have lots
candy.
of candy.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Okay.
make it work.
Let's try to make it work. We do have hybrid options if
Yeah.
people need it, and hopefully we can at least get a good discussion going with the superintendent, who in just another month's time will start putting together a calendar with Ms. Bergeron's help, and we'll have some decisions to make in the spring. Okay. Thank you so much.
As usual, the McEwen.
Is there a space available still at McEwen? I know we've repurposed a lot of the classrooms. Should we?
Come to my office, it's everybody's
Okay. Okay, Dr. Flaherty's office. Thank you.
That means you get the leftover food.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, the last item this evening is a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Thank you, Ms. Coelho. Not debatable. All those in favor? 7-0. We're unanimous. Thank you so much, BevCam. Thank you for those playing along at home.